All right, let's get right into it. Universal basic income. For the longest time, this felt like something straight out of science fiction or maybe an obscure paper in an economics journal. Well, that's not the case anymore. It's no longer just an idea. It's a political reality that's being built, piece by piece as we speak.
And if you look closely, you'll see we've already got small-scale versions of UBI out there in the wild. I mean, take the Alaska Permanent Fund. They've been sharing oil money with their residents for decades, and that program keeps adapting to whatever the economy throws at it.
And it's not just a one-off thing in Alaska. We're seeing these dedicated pilot programs pop up all over the world, and they're giving us some really critical real-world data. The experiment they ran in Stockton, California, for example, actually showed measurable positive effects on people's health and well-being.
But it's not even just about the numbers. Big experiments like the one in Finland are literally shaping the entire global conversation around this. They're providing the hard evidence needed to kickstart serious debates and force politicians to actually take UBI seriously.
So that brings us to the big question, right? It's one thing to run a small trial in one city, but how in the world do you go from that to a program for an entire country? What's the actual step-by-step playbook for making this happen?
So what's the plan? Well, the path to a nationwide UBI isn't some sudden giant leap. It's actually a pretty structured, multi-phase process, a blueprint that, believe it or not, is already being followed.
And according to that blueprint, we're looking at 5 key phases. It starts with these stealth pilots that we're seeing right now. Then it moves into some really intense debates over taxes, followed by integrating digital currencies. After that, we'll probably see a compromise with pre-UBI programs. And all of that leads to the final step, the first nation actually committing to the whole thing. Let's break each of those down.
Phase 1. We are right in the middle of it. These are the stealth pilots. They're small, usually focused on just one city or a specific group of people. The whole point is just to collect hard data. Answer the big questions. Does it make people stop working? Does it make them healthier? But here's the thing. The biggest hurdle isn't the data, it's politics. Opponents are always ready to claim the studies are biased before they even begin.
So once that data starts piling up, the conversation is going to pivot, and fast, to the biggest elephant in the room, the money. How do you actually pay for this whole thing? And that, my friends, brings us to phase 2.
Get ready for the great taxation debate. Sometime around 2026, expect this to be all over the headlines. 2 big ideas are probably going to take center stage. On one side, you've got the robot tax. That's a tax on the money companies make from automation. It directly connects the problem, jobs being replaced, to the solution. On the other side, you have a more classic approach. Just raise the value-added tax, or VAT, which is basically a tax on all the stuff we buy. Both of these ideas are going to be fought over like crazy, but they'll both lead to the first really serious UBI funding bills being introduced.
Okay, so let's say a government actually figures out the funding. Now they have a new problem. How do you get that money to millions and millions of people quickly and efficiently? This is where tech becomes absolutely essential, which leads us to phase 3.
And the answer a lot of people are pointing to is a Central Bank Digital Currency, or a CBDC. The easiest way to think about it is like a digital dollar or a digital euro sent straight from the central bank to your own digital wallet. This whole system could bypass the slow, old-school banks and make payments instant and cheap. But, and this is a big but, that word traceable is going to spark some massive debates about our financial privacy and just how much oversight the government should have.
But even if you have the money and the tech all figured out, just handing out cash is a huge political leap. So that leads us to phase 4, a kind of political compromise that's really designed to get the public comfortable with the whole idea first. And this is what we call the pre-UBI compromise. So instead of cash, governments might start by rolling out universal basic services. This is a much, much easier idea to sell politically by guaranteeing things like, say, basic internet for everyone, or free public transport, or foundational healthcare. They can build up public support for universal programs before making that final jump to sending out actual money.
And then, once all those pieces are in place, you've got the pilot data, the funding is debated, the digital pipes are built, and the public is on board thanks to basic services, well, that's when the final domino is ready to fall. With all of that groundwork laid, we finally get to the last phase. The first nation commits. This is the tipping point. This is phase 5. It's that moment when one major country puts all the pieces together and actually launches a nationwide UBI program. And you can bet the rest of the world will be watching.
And really, that's the big takeaway here. The tech to do all this, it's pretty much here already. The economic models for funding it, they're being debated right now. The final challenge isn't some technical problem we need to solve. It all comes down to political courage and public will.
So, this blueprint gives us a pretty plausible roadmap, but of course, nothing is set in stone. As we wrap this up, let's chew on some of the big questions that are still out there. First off, what do you think? Which nation is going to be the one to finally take the leap?
And what about the pushback? I mean, if a robot tax gets seriously proposed, which industry do you think is going to fight it the hardest? Is it going to be finance, manufacturing, the tech sector? Who puts up the biggest fight?
You know, politics can be a funny thing. Which major political party, maybe one you'd least expect, will be the first one to kind of reluctantly get on board with UBI, not because they love the idea, but because they see it as a total necessity? And here's one for you. If you were running one of these pilot programs, what's the one thing, the single metric you'd point to prove that it's working? Would it be better physical health, lower stress levels, or maybe a boom in people starting their own businesses?
And one last thing to think about. Before we even get to the cash part, which universal basic service is the most important? If a nation had to pick just one thing to guarantee for all its citizens first, what should it be? Internet? Transport? Healthcare? Something else? The blueprint is definitely being drawn, and the debate is just getting started.